my name is Janna. I come from curriculum and instruction, so I teach people how to teach middle and high school. I used to be a high school English teacher, so I've got some experience in that. Because of that, I really try to use technology that's either free or ubiquitous, particularly since my students typically teach in urban schools and they don't always have the money or the technology to do fancy stuff. So I had a presentation all set yesterday by the end of the work day. Got my kids, got them fed and in bed, and then I was like, I'm not really happy with what I have. I'm not practicing what I preach. So after I put my kids to bed, so between like 8:30 and 11 last night, I threw together something different. And my wife actually came in and she saw what I was doing. She was like, that looks like it's from the 80s. Like, okay, it can't be from the 80s because I don't think PowerPoint was around in the 80s, but maybe 90s. So hopefully I'll have time in the future to make it look a little more sophisticated. So think of this maybe as my storyboard. So forgive me for kind of the basic graphics, but it's at least a little more interactive than what I originally had planned. Oh, that's not supposed to happen. Oh, why is it doing that?
We like this one.
I know, but I need to do a lot of clicking. There we go. All right. So we have our little screen bean. That's why she said it looked like it was from the 80s. Right. Fall into the water. Who am I? Where did I come from? All right, so we have a problem. We have a dilemma we have to figure out. We have a screen bean with amnesia. But he has these vague memories of both a classroom and a game controller. How can you have both memories at once? Which one do you want to click on? Classroom or game controller? All right, let's click on the game controller. Oh, look, they blend together. I must have fallen out of a game-based teaching class. But what does that mean? What does game-based teaching mean? All right, what do you guys think? Which one of these do you think is a better representation of game-based teaching? We have students answering questions about fractions in order for the monster to let them through the gate. We have students get 10 answers correct in a row. They get to play a platform game. Math problems shown on the screen, and they have alien spaceships with different numbers. They have to shoot the one with the right answer. Or steering a nanobot through the human body to help repair the immune system. You guys think all of them? All right, well, which one do you want me to click first? A, B, C, or D? B. B, all right. Oh, look at that. If your spaceship requires you to answer a math problem before you can use your blasters, chances are you'll hate the game and hate the math. All right, let's try another one. Which one? D? All right. Yes, D. And that's actually a game called Immune Attack. All right? So game-based teaching is a unit or course-long curricular game where students role-play elements in a system in order to explore solutions to a problem. So the nanobot was in the immune system, exploring it, trying to figure out how that system works. The test is, does the core mechanic match the core game mechanic match the learning objective? So for example, the core game mechanic of shooting the alien spaceships, is that the one we chose? This one? Oh, which one did we choose? The platform game, right? Core mechanic of the platform game is running and jumping, right? The student had to solve math problems in order to run and jump, but the math problems were unrelated to figuring out the trajectory to jump and where you'll land and all that stuff. So you want to think about what is the student doing. Is the student actually practicing the learning objective, right? If you have, say, a word search to find vocab words, you want the students to understand the vocab words and how they relate to the larger concept. Well, the word search is really just identifying a sequence of letters among letters. That's not the same core game mechanic. That's not what the learning objective is. So that's our test to see if it's game-based teaching. But we still don't know where we came from. We figured out what game-based teaching is, still don't know. If only I could remember how I came to be. What were the pieces in the process? Let's take a look. All right, so we have all these memories of different pieces in the process. Which one do you want me to explore first? Oh, Christmas tree. Let's take a look at the Christmas tree. Rendering the game. Is that where we want to go first? Yes? All right. So rendering the game means putting the game together and making it live. Okay? All right? And one of the things that I stress is this does not have to involve fancy, flashy technology as evidenced by my PowerPoint presentation, right? As a matter of fact, I'm teaching a course on game-based teaching, and I had a pair of students turn in a no technology at all version and a low technology version. I actually really like the no technology version much better. Their game involved a painting being stolen from a Spanish museum. They're the detective who has to track it down, and so they have to use Spanish to chase down the thief through Madrid and buy the train ticket, figure out where they have to go using a map, buy the train tickets, meet an informant at a cafe, order off a menu, all these kind of basic Spanish skills embedded in this game. But the no-tech version had students doing this in class with actual menus and maps, and they would, have to speak to the teacher. They would practice first and then speak to the teacher to see if they passed to get to move on to the next challenge or quest. So I really liked, I could visualize the students doing this in class and really getting into it. So that's something I think that's important to keep in mind. It can be very intimidating to think, oh my gosh, I have to design a flashy video game like World of Warcraft, right? Who can do that? Look at the credits for any of those fancy video games and the amount of money they spend on them, okay? So you can do it with no technology. For example, I have another student who's doing his on the bubonic plague. His students role play different peasant, emergent, and so forth. And I suggested he could use Facebook pages and put them around the room. So it solves the problem of having teenagers go on Facebook, right? And they have to do their profile, and then they write on each other's walls and update their status as, their family starts dying or whatever. I had another student do this with an ecosystem where every student was a different organism in an ecosystem, and they had to, if they friended the wrong friend, they'd get eaten, right? And then she had a natural disaster occur, and they had to write their status update and react to that. Low-tech, choose your own adventure PowerPoint. You can really repurpose a lot of technologies that you're already familiar with in order to create a game like I'm doing right now, and you'll see some other examples. And then there's other, if you want to get fancier, you can repurpose Excel even to run, say, a simulation where you enter the formulas and it does the calculation behind the scenes. You think about if you wanted, buying a house, right? And it could calculate what your mortgage would be if you can afford it based on your salary and so forth. And then high tech using the, there's more and more gaming software coming out. All right, so we explored the Christmas tree. What do we want to explore next?
Idea.
All right, the idea. Brainstorm the topic, okay? If you're already a teacher, this can be easy. It's the topic of your class or a unit within your class. If you're just doing it on your own, sometimes that can be the hardest part, figuring out, right, what it is you want to gamify. Next. What do you want to explore next? Oh, the hammer, assembling the elements. Okay, I know you can't read that. I can't even read it. I'm standing right here. This is a sample of the design document that asks questions about player configuration, right? Is it going to be played individually, small groups, as a class? What are the rules? What are the objects in the game? Are they dynamic? Are they static? So putting it all together after you've thought about these different pieces, how are they going to all work together? All right, what haven't we explored yet? Which one? Oh, the mirror. Reflecting on the game, does it actually work? Well, there have been some studies that have shown that having students play around with things first gives them a context with which to understand the information. G uses the phrase performance before competence, right? Get their hands dirty, and then they have a reason and a context with which to understand the information and pull the information in. And there's a great book written by David Williamson Schaefer, How Computer Games Help Children Learn, where he talks about all sorts of different experiments that have been done with this that have shown things like physics students in a traditional physics class, they can do the algorithm, they can figure out the formulas, but they don't understand what it means in the real world, right? It's like the question about if you have school buses that seat 20 students each, and you have 45 students, how many school buses, or let's say 50 students, how many school buses do you need, right? And kids say 2.5, right? You can't have half a school bus, right? You need 3 school buses, so those kinds of things. And Barnard University's actually been doing this kind of thing for a long time. They have a curriculum called Reacting to the Past, where their history classes have students role play for the whole semester different historical figures, and they access the primary documents, and they have to make the decisions, and depending on the decision they make, the history will go one way or another. That's called counterfactual analysis. Like, what would have happened if the North said to the South, go ahead, secede, we don't care, right? What would the world look like today? Think about how much of a deep understanding of history you would have to do that. And then, of course, in the debriefing, you can talk about, well, this is what actually happened, and compare that. And then my course evals, as I've gamified my classes more and more, have increased. So shows you something. All right. Oh, let's look at the carrot. So a big part of this is designing those puzzles, those quests, those challenges. That's where you really want that core game mechanic to mirror the learning objectives. And so what I did was I put together my own little example. I stole this idea from one of my students who's doing a Can You Escape game based on physics. I did mine on chemistry, but I have to tell you, last time I took chemistry, I was in 10th grade, which, oh my goodness, would have been, yeah, just 5 years ago. Yeah, that would have been early 80s, so it's been a while. So forgive me for this being a very basic experiment, but first let's see who we are. Oh, look at that, we're Michael Jackson. What's the song, the Man in the Mirror, whatever? Okay, so we're in a room, we're trapped in a room. How do we escape? What do we need to escape? What do you need? The key, and where's the key? On the shelf, so let's check it out. Okay, now what's the problem with the key? It's frozen. How are we going to get the key? Oh, break the ice. I don't see a hammer. That's a good idea, but unfortunately it seems we don't seem to be equipped with a hammer. Okay, how are you going to melt it? Okay, we're going to try the water. Oh, the water just pours right over it. That doesn't melt it. What do we need to do? We need to heat the water, don't we? Oh, so now we have some boiling water. So now let's try pouring it. There we go. We melted the ice. Okay. If we had tried the oxygen if we had tried heating the oxygen or the acid, it would have blown up. I don't know if that's actually what would happen, but in my basic chemistry mind. Sometimes, you know what? Sometimes there's a lot of learning and doing the wrong thing, like clicking on the acid and having it dissolve both the ice and the key, right? So that's one of the things about video games is you learn a lot from your mistakes. School doesn't always honor that. Teachers don't always honor learning from your mistakes. You have to get it right. You have to, especially in this day and age of testing, right? So think about that. I have two 4-year-olds, and they play a game called I'm a Iguana, and they have a map. They have to click on the right island to move on. They know which island is the right island, but they also know if they click on the right island first, they don't get to see all the fun things that happen when you click on the wrong islands. So they will purposefully leave the right island last so they can check out, see, oh, the pirate island, oh, the island that's actually an octopus, you know, and so forth. The island that turns into a volcano. So they do all the wrong ones first. So I think that's one of the fun things. It kind of flips learning on its head in terms of, right, sometimes we want to make mistakes to see what happens. And it's safer to make say a chemistry mistake in a PowerPoint than in a lab. All right. What haven't we explored yet? Oh, the ghost. Oh, telling a story. So this is a cutscene. This is an introductory cutscene to one of the classes that I teach. Sets up the story.
Welcome. Thank you for meeting with me. There is enough noise that we will not be overheard. I have a rather unusual case for you. At Auburn High School we have an internal social media site called Facebook. Someone hacked into my Facebook account and defaced it. I am determined to find the culprit and have them punished. That is why I want to hire a private investigator. You come highly recommended, so I hope you accept this case. You will pose as a new teacher and so will have to quickly learn how to teach so you do not give away your true identity. Fortunately, we have an orientation required for all new teachers. I do have a student mole on the inside. Since the student cannot get caught talking to me directly, you will need to relay messages back and forth. To protect the student's identity, you will not know which of your students is the insider. Therefore, you must teach both code-breaking skills and coded messages to all students. I will communicate with you periodically. Good luck.
Okay. All right. That actually is free. Was a free program. It doesn't exist anymore. And the chemistry experiment was done with PowerPoint. So all this is done with stuff that's free or people have. Let's see. What do we have left? I think we have this left. Diagramming the system of the topic. So I have my students diagram the system and then simplify it and complexify it. Think about what are the different levels at which you can understand a system. And so this is actually something I put together in Excel, a little game called Jotto that I put in Excel, where there's a target word, the audience guesses 3-letter words, and then it identifies. So let's say our 3-letter word was cat. So we see there's no matching. Let's do oak. Oh, we have 1 letter that matches. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to give you, see if you can see this has, it's an attic. The escape route doesn't work. I'm just going to give away the answer. Oh, that's a 0, not now. Okay. Whoop. Got to do it in the right spot. Okay, so I got the right answer. And now, so that was a 3-letter word. Now we should be able to move on to the next level, which has a 5-letter word that we have to guess and get correct in order to go out the door to get to the 7-letter word. So the very basic increasing levels of complexity, but that's something you want to think about is how can you increase the cognitive demand on the students. So did we explore all of them? Did we do teaching? This one? I don't think we did this one. All right, so what might this look like in a university setting? I know we're heavy into assessment these days, but one of the things that I like about this kind of curriculum is it helps make thinking visible or sometimes audible, particularly if you have students work in small groups and they have to decide, talk together, or you could even have a whole class make a decision together and vote. And if you have a small seminar, that's ideal for role-playing games. But even large lectures, you can break the students into small groups, and each group can be, say, a different historical figure, or even go through something like this and vote as a class using clickers. Or sometimes it's even easier just to raise your hands. I actually toyed with the idea of having you guys do clickers, but I'm glad I didn't because I wouldn't have had enough. And I also learned that unless you're heavily infused, if everything's based on clickers and students bring their own, as the teacher, when I pass, takes a while to pass them out, check to see if the battery works, oh, my battery doesn't work, replace the batteries. Sometimes technology can get in the way. All right, so I think we explored all our areas, have all the pieces, but what order do they go in? Which one do you think is first? Do I need to mouse over them to remind you of what they are? Brainstorm. Yay! All right, what do you think is next? Oh, that's not right. We've thought of an idea. What do we want to do next? Diagram it. All right. So now we've diagrammed it. We want to put it together. Oh, not there yet. So we have a system. What do you want to try next? Oh, we're not ready to teach it yet. We're not ready to put it together yet. Oh, we do that at the end. We have a system. Not quite. What's left? We want to tell the story of that system. Okay? So we have a system. We want to tell the story. And what helped me come up with this design last night? I was thinking, okay, well, what's my system? And now I want to choose an element in that system and tell the story from an element in that system. So in this case, the element is one of the characters in the system telling the story. All right, so now we have a story, and now we need... Oh, we're not quite ready to put it together. Before we put it together, I'll give you a hint. We have to design puzzles to go in there. Are we ready to put it together now? We assemble it in a design document. Put it together in terms of the technology or no technology. And now what do we want to do? Reflect. Oh, not quite. We want to teach it, and then we get that valuable student feedback, right? Sometimes in the form of, this stinks. I've gotten, not quite that, but I've gotten close to that before when I've tried new things. And now we're ready to reflect. Okay, so yay! We figured out the process. Now we have to figure out which game we're from. And what I did is I put up examples from different subject areas, some of the basic subject areas. So I have one student who's designing, it's like a board game where each group of students is a different country in World War II, and they race around the board to see who can get to the atomic bomb first. And whichever country gets to the atomic bomb first gets to use it or not. And then they get to play out, well, what would have happened, right? Different country. had that power. Science, this is the one with the physics, can you escape? I have a student who's doing the post-apocalyptic, that's always seems popular in video games. The survivors have to build communities. He's doing that one in Excel. There's the recover the painting, stolen, in English, putting the different events in the Odyssey in the correct sequence. Okay. All right. So which game am I from? Should we click on A, B, C, D, or E? Well, I will give it away because it could be from any game. So this is a quote from Marc Prensky. There's enough variation in what we call a game that with some imagination, a high quality, engaging, and effective game that works for a large number of people can be designed and built for any topic. All right. So some of my final thoughts. I somehow keep on having this teaching misconception that if I don't say it, how will students learn it, right? If I'm not up here lecturing and saying this, whatever, how in the world will they learn it? That's not the question I should be asking. The question I should be asking is, if students don't say it, how will they learn it? So think about how can you design your game so students say it, students articulate it. They have to debate with their partner to decide what to do next. They have to keep field notes, gather the evidence, make decisions, right? Whatever thinking looks like in your field, how can you get them to think like a scientist, like a mathematician, like a historian? So instead of pushing information on to students like a traditional lecture does, think about how you can get students to pull that information, to go out and seek that information so they can figure out how to use it, how to apply it. And curricular games are one way to do this, to try their hand at something, that performance before competence, and then pulling the information so they can use it. All right, so let's see, what might this look like in Blackboard? This is one of my courses. I was going to have you tell me where to go, but I will, in the interest of time, tell you that the first place, if you go to any, if you go to any of these, you just get a picture. You can't really do anything with that, actually. One of these, you get a little animated GIF. Look, that's me in the construction truck. First place you need to go is top secret. This is the same video we saw before. So in Blackboard Learn, what you can do is you can set things to be reviewed, and once students mark it as reviewed, something else pops up using adaptive release. Okay? So if you haven't played around with adaptive release, I encourage you to do so. If we go, let's see, actually I think we have to mark that as reviewed, or go, I know, we have to go to our field notes. See, so students have to explore, mark this as reviewed, and now they get their application to be hired. Okay? All right, so if we return to teacher view, you can see, and you know what, I had this epiphany putting this together. I put it in, originally I just had it like first, second, third in each section. Then I realized I should put it in reverse chronological order. So whatever they're working on should pop up at the top. So see here, the application is actually at the bottom of this section. So then once they mark this, once they pass their application, then they get the next, they get the interview video shows up at the top, and so forth, and so forth. So you can see I have adaptive release here, and if you take a look, let's see, where is it? It releases it once I've taken a marked reviewed and decided to take the job. The interview video gets released only after they've passed so they have to have passed the application, so you can use tests and so forth. And one thing that I figured out this time around is the tests in Blackboard Learn, you can give different feedback depending on how they do on the test. So some of the hints, some of the evidence that students have to gather comes in the feedback after they pass a quiz, and then they get, oh, here's the piece of the puzzle that you need for the next item. So I was hoping that we would have time to practice, but I think I might be running out of time. But I do want to show you one thing. So when I redid, so one of my students says this has inspired him to gamify everything. So another epiphany I had as I was putting this together is, oh, I should have a progress bar, you see at the top, to show people where they are. So I think I'm out of time. I was hoping to give you guys a chance to kind of brainstorm with a partner and think about ways you could gamify your curriculum. But I trust this will be on your mind for the rest of the day, right? You'll be percolating on this, and you'll be thinking by the end of the day, you'll be like, oh yeah, that's what I should do. Before I hand it over to the next presenter, any questions? Thumbs up, thumbs down, neutral. Does this resonate with you guys? Do you think you might explore this? All right, that's what I like to hear. So my email, I should have put my email address up there. My email address is janna.kellinger. I don't know if it's in the program, but my name's in the program, @umb.edu. Oh, thank you. If you have any questions, or if you're gamifying a course and you want to share it with me and tell me what you're doing, and tell me how your students react, I'll be so excited to hear from you. Mark, did you have a question?
Well, I thought about that last bullet on the course analysis. Some of the items on here, did you focus sincerely on the items that have to do with how they learn, or was it the
That was my average, yeah.
items that include instructor,
Yes.
office hours, all those questions?
Yeah, the whole range, right, I improved overall. When I taught a technology and education class a long time ago when I was a grad student at Boston College in more of a traditional manner, and Boston College has their own ratemyprofessor.com websites. Don't go on those. It's only the students who don't do well in your class who post. But I made the mistake of going on there, and one of my students said something like, I felt like I was in kindergarten. She was just telling us what to, I was kind of doing the traditional technology, like, this is where you go next, and then you go here, and then you go here. And she's like, I felt like I was in kindergarten, being told what to do, da 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 da. And that was a big wake-up call. I actually vowed, I'm like, I'm never teaching an ed tech class again. I took a little break, and I'm like, well, maybe I need to just learn from that and do it differently. So, all right, well, thank you. Thank you, everyone. You've been a great audience. Thanks for playing along with my game that I threw together last night.